How's it going, everyone? Today we're looking at Bitcoin and the different levels of wealth you can hold in Bitcoin. What will 0.01 Bitcoin or zero point 0.1 Bitcoin be like in 10, 20, 30 years? How will people act around you if they knew how much you had? How much would you like to retire? How many people will be able to get to that point? We're going to be talking about all that in today's video. And we're also going to show a clip of Michael Saylor recently talking about whether 0.1 Bitcoin will be enough. That's coming from the Altcoin Daily channel. So shout out to them. Met both of them in real life. Awesome people. Very down to earth. And if you don't mind, without further ado, please hit the subscribe button, turn on that bell notification, and hit the like button, and let's get into it. Right now, Bitcoin's price is around $30,000. For people that have just been paying attention to crypto for the last couple of years, maybe they think that this is a dying market. Bitcoin is going to be gone in 10, 15 years. That's what some people think, because we were at 70,000, now we're down at 30,000. But this is typical. Market cycles typically happen just like this, where we run up during a bull run, fall down, go sideways, maybe go down further. There's a lot of capitulation. There are a lot of people selling towards the bottom. Obviously, people are fearful, and then everything turns around during the bull market, and then we move to a new high. And this continues to show every single cycle the market psychology. People are fearful at the bottom and are super greedy at the top. So we will hit a new all-time high, in my opinion. We will have people that flood into crypto, looking to buy and looking to set up their retirement, trying to get more Bitcoin than the person next to them. And they're going to wonder, how much do I need? Which is what we'll be talking about here today. And for anyone that's wondering why I think Bitcoin's going to move up and why I think it's going to do really well, there are a variety of reasons for that. I've done videos on 40 plus reasons why you want Bitcoin or why to be bullish on Bitcoin. But recently, BlackRock has talked on this, the CEO of BlackRock. And if you don't know what BlackRock is, they are the largest money manager in the world. They have about $9 trillion worth of assets under management, and they have 70 offices in 30 countries and clients in 100 countries. So they are massive. A lot of people have heard of Fidelity. They're bigger than Fidelity. They hold more assets than Fidelity. And recently, their CEO says he does believe that a lot of crypto are international assets, and he thinks that Bitcoin, specifically in crypto, are going to transcend any one currency and currency valuation. He has been very bullish on Bitcoin, trying to get an ETF approved so that he can offer this to his clients. So the largest institutional money manager out there is bullish on crypto. Fidelity is bullish on crypto. A lot of big companies are trying to now set everything up so that they can have their clients buy crypto. There are a lot of signs that people want in on crypto and have just not been able to buy it yet because of the laws here in the US. But that brings me to my next question. Is there a number that gives you enough? Of course, as people that are in crypto, we always want to buy more. We always want to hold more. Most of us, I think, get more and more bullish as time goes on in crypto. And of course, there are day-to-day fluctuations in price, but the value of the networks continues to grow. Every single day, there's more adoption. So how much would you need? How much Bitcoin do you need? Well, to hold more than the average person on Earth, you need about 0.0023 Bitcoin. And I've talked about some of this before in prior videos, but this is going to be different. We're going to go through the levels of wealth. If you have 0.01 Bitcoin, what's that mean? 0.1 Bitcoin, what's that mean? That kind of thing. But first of all, this is the level that you have to hit just to have more than the average person. Now, a lot of people will have more than this. Keep in mind, at this level, a lot of people are going to have more than this. There are going to be some people that have less than this, like in developing worlds, or people that just don't invest. In developing countries, I should say, people will have a hard time getting this amount. Let's say Bitcoin's at $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. This is still a significant chunk of change. If we multiply that by 3 million, this would be $7,000 worth. So I know Bitcoin at $3 million, that's crazy, but 10, 20, 30 years down the line, definitely achievable. So $7,000 worth would be a lot to most people on Earth, but this isn't going to really set you ahead. that much in life. I mean, it's great because you have some and you have a hedge against the dollar. You have some currency that you can send across the world and you can take part in the Bitcoin network. But it's not like you're going to be able to go out and put a down payment on a house with this or buy a car even in 10, 20, 30 years. There's going to be inflation rolled into this. So $7,000 is actually going to be less than it seems like today. So this is a good amount, but it's not going to be a super substantial amount to help you towards retirement. Just keep that in mind. Now, I will say, Michael Saylor is going to be in this clip later in the video, and he does make a case that no matter when you buy, is pretty much a good time to be buying. It's like buying real estate in New York, whether you bought it in the 1700s or 1800s or 1900s, you're sitting pretty today. This is like basically just having access to the network. Buying Bitcoin gives you access to the network, which is a bank in cyberspace. So there is something to be said. No matter what amount you have, probably just try to grab some. Staying diversified in your portfolio, obviously, and doing your own due diligence, you should probably try to grab some at some point. Now, 0.01 Bitcoin. What's this going to be like? Well, there are 12 million addresses that have 0.01 Bitcoin, at least right now. And I will say a lot of people do have multiple wallet addresses. So some people might have 2, 3, 4. I'd say the average is probably like 2 or 3 for the average crypto investor. So it might be like 3, 4 million, 5 million people that have 0.01 Bitcoin or more. But this is going to be a good start. Honestly, in 10, 20, 30 years, again, let's say Bitcoin's $2 million, $3 million, which again, I understand sounds crazy, but with inflation, it's going to be closer to 600,000 or $1 million in today's dollars. That's pretty on pace with what gold's at now, the market cap. So at that point, you have 0.01 Bitcoin. That's going to be a good start. At a $3 million price per Bitcoin, that would be about $30,000 worth of Bitcoin. And it's not going to be enough to retire on, let's be clear, but it's going to be more than most people have, especially if you're in your 20s or 30s. Most people won't have that amount. And some people will buy at high levels and they'll be able to get their hands on 0.01 Bitcoin because they're wealthy anyways. But it's going to be hard for the majority of people to get up to that point. Now, if you are looking 20 years out and let's say your kid's 20 in 20 years, they might be able to continue to save in a 401k and get to 0.01, 0.02, 0.05 Bitcoin or something like that. But that's going to take their entire career of investing if they're diversified, right? If they're investing 5K a year into a 401k, that's going to take a long time to be able to get to that 0.01 Bitcoin. So you can't retire on this 0.01 Bitcoin, but it's definitely going to be more than most people have. Now, from there, you can look at 0.1 Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, we'll talk about this in a bit, but there are about 4 million addresses, so probably 1 to 2, maybe 3 million people that have 0.1 Bitcoin. Still not a lot of people out there. 1 out of every 10,000 people on Earth have that, or 1 out of every, closer to maybe 1 out of every 2,000 people on Earth have that. So if people know that you have 0.1 Bitcoin in the decades to come, they will be jealous. That's going to be worth a lot of money. Like if we roll back to that $3 million example, that's $300,000. It's not going to be like $300,000 in today's dollars, but maybe $100,000, $80,000. Like if you told someone that you have $100,000 in an investment account, they would be jealous. I think a lot of people in their 20s or 30s would be looking at that and wishing that was the position they were in. Now, I will say that people watching this, you guys, obviously probably have a better financial setup than most people because this is what you're focusing on day in and day out. You're paying attention watching videos like this, so you're probably way more focused on making money and investing. So you're probably already in a better spot than most people. But this will be the level that you have to be careful. You have to be careful who knows that you have 0.1 Bitcoin. And you have to be careful how you store it. Right? You're going to have good practices in place because if, let's say your kid knows that you have 0.1 Bitcoin or 0.2 Bitcoin or whatever it is, and they go and tell their friends, right? People are going to look at you like you are very wealthy. That could also bring some security risks too, right? If you just keep it in your house or on your phone or something, you're going to be a target. So you have to be careful when you have 0.1 Bitcoin in the decades to come. That's going to be a significant amount. And hopefully there are easier ways to store and to keep safe your Bitcoin. Honestly, I know a lot of people don't trust the banks and trust the government, but in some scenarios in the future, we could see possibly the US government being a little bit more protective. When we think about how you could get 0.1 Bitcoin, if there's spot ETFs approved, that could be a nice way of investing, buying spot, keeping it in an account that's a little bit safer than a wallet. Of course, you don't get some of the benefits of actually holding Bitcoin. It's more of an investment at that point than an asset that you can move around with, you can send across the world, that kind of thing. But for a lot of people, that might be okay. They might just want to hold it for investment purposes. And in that case, it might be a little bit safer too. And then we have to take a look at the wallet addresses that have 1 Bitcoin. What will 1 Bitcoin be like in the years to come? Well, there are only about 1 million addresses that have 1 Bitcoin. Keep in mind, again, a lot of people that have a significant amount of Bitcoin have multiple wallets. And especially when you get really wealthy, a lot of people just have, dust like $10, $20, $30,000 on different wallets for different things. So some people probably have 5, 10, 20 wallets that have a Bitcoin on them. But in the future, this will be a lot of money. People that have 1 Bitcoin could probably consider retirement. Now, again, $3 million Bitcoin, probably closer to $1 to $2 million today, but that will be a significant amount. People will be jealous. It'll be like the people that have the nicest house in the neighborhood. Everyone's kind of staring, maybe whispering, that kind of thing. People might say that you're lucky. Like if you invested now in 10, 20 years, they'll say that you're lucky to get in so early. And, some people might actually be right that we were lucky to be around at this time if they are younger. Like if someone tells you that in 20 years and they're a 20-year-old, they can't buy Bitcoin when they're 0. Their parents probably aren't buying Bitcoin for them. But people our age, people that are around to invest right now, will still say that. They'll say, you're lucky, I thought about it, or, oh, I saw Bitcoin at $15,000. I had the chance to, but I just didn't do it. I could have, but, I just decided it wasn't a good investment at the time, that kind of thing. They'll think you're lucky. They'll also be very jealous. You'll also be very wealthy. Now, if you get to the next echelon, maybe 10 Bitcoin, you're going to be set. You're going to be set for life, essentially. Even right now, you're doing really well. That's $300,000 worth of Bitcoin. And when we go into the next bull cycle, if we hit $100,000, $200,000, that's $1 million to $2 million worth of Bitcoin. Of course, you have to stay diversified. But if you hold that to the point where Bitcoin's in the millions, obviously you're going to be set up for life. You can't go and buy private jets, probably. You're probably not that level of wealth. But you can retire. You can live wherever you want. You can buy a couple nice houses. You can buy nice cars. You can send your kids to private school. You can eat whatever you want. You could probably hire a private chef if you wanted, that kind of thing. Now, Michael Saylor talks about if 0.1 Bitcoin's enough, and that's what really inspired this video. I'll play that here before the end screen. It is a bit of a longer clip, but it's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it already.
One thing, as an average American, there's only one hang up I have, is that I feel like I'm a little late to the party. There's no way I can accumulate 1 whole Bitcoin. I mean, at this point, I'm shooting for 0.1 Bitcoin. So, I guess my question is 0.1 Bitcoin of any significance?
New York was the greatest city in North America by about 1776. And you would have been late to the party. But the question is, would you buy a city block in New York in 1776? Or if you waited till 1876 and you were really late to the party and New York was the greatest city in North America, was it too late to buy a city block in New York City in 1876? Or how about 1976? If you were 200 years late to New York City, if you look at the property values of New York in 1976, what you'll find is you would be rich if you had actually bought real estate in New York in 1976. So the answer to the issue is, in every economic system, every economic empire, there's always one city, one place, one network where people gravitate to. In ancient And in the ancient Med, it was Carthage for a while, and then it was Rome, and then it was Venice. And eventually the French Empire terminated in Paris, and the British Empire terminated in London. And then eventually the American economic empire terminated in New York. And there are reasons why. It's just everybody comes together in that place. Even today, New York is still the economic epicenter of the United States. And so Bitcoin represents the economic epicenter of cyberspace. It is the one place where if I want to create a digital application, if I want to move money at the speed of light, and I live in Singapore, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in Paris, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in Moscow, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in China, I'm using Bitcoin. So you see, everybody in the world that actually believes in the idea of a digital asset that wants to build this as a treasury reserve asset, they're going to gravitate toward the most powerful network. Why? Because everybody else is gravitating there. Why do people go to New York? Because the smart money is in New York. I could go to New York 20 years ago. I could take 10 meetings. I could raise $1 billion in 2 days. So why would we be so stupid as to go to New York? Well, because that's where the money is. The money is in New York, so I win. And what did I bring with me? I brought my brain power, and I built my business there. And so I then reinforced that network effect. Today, the smart money is in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's about a $500 billion network. How big can it get? Well, 500 trillion, 1,000x bigger in today's dollars. There's about $950 trillion worth of wealth out there. 350 trillion worth of real estate. Half of it is just capital or monetary premium. $300 trillion worth of bonds, half of it is just a monetary premium. 100 trillion worth of equity, half of it is a monetary premium. 11, 12 trillion worth of gold, 80% of it is a monetary premium. So as the world gets smarter, people are going to sell those things because they don't make good money. Gold is awful money, right? It's just awful money. If you store your money in gold, you're losing half of your wealth every 35 years. So why would you do that, right? It's not working. In the last 2.5 years, gold is down 5%, Bitcoin is up 150%. The only people that are buying or holding gold are people that aren't paying attention, right? The smart money is clearly running away from it. And in time, people will dump their gold. And when they dump their gold, Bitcoin will jump by a factor of 10. So the answer to the question of why you should buy a Bitcoin is that Bitcoin represents one block in cyber New York, which has got 21 million blocks for all of eternity. And in the year 2500, people are going to be moving to cyber New York, right? I mean, New York was founded a long time ago, right? The only thing that keeps people from continuing to come into the great city, whether it's the New York or the London or the Paris, is when the economic flows move from the physical domain to the digital domain. As long as you did business in an analog world where you had to like put on a suit and walk into a building and meet with people, then you're going to see London and Paris and Tokyo and Hong Kong be great cities. When the economy moves to the digital realm, and you don't have to put on a suit and walk into a building, and you can have a Zoom meeting of 20 people in 20 places and raise $1 billion in a day, right? Then some of the economic energy drains out of the city networks and it drains into the crypto network. And so buying a Bitcoin, whether it's one Bitcoin or a million Satoshis or 100,000 Satoshis or one Satoshi, is just like buying into New York City 250 years ago. Yeah, sure, you're late. People got there 100 years before you. Okay? Well, in this case, someone got there 14 years before you. I once tweeted, very famously, I said, I think Bitcoin is, going the way of online gambling. And I think Bitcoin's like $100 coin then. Okay? And I was wrong. But I didn't need it. I was wrong. when I needed Bitcoin was $9,500, $10,000 a coin. And so I bought it at $10,000 instead of $100. People will buy it at 100,000. They will buy it at 1 million. They will probably buy it at 10 million, right? Because, how much does it cost for an apartment in Manhattan? People pay $10 million for 4,000 square feet. $10 million, right? All of Manhattan was purchased for like $29 in beads or something. If you roll the clock back, some nothing. And so you can't really get caught up in what the unit price is. You have to ask the question, what is the dominant network in cyberspace? And Bitcoin is the dominant network. And the reason it's the dominant network is a bunch of things. One, all the smart money arrived there, right? If all the smart people that wanted a decentralized, non-sovereign store of value crypto network, if they all showed up, looked at 10,000 choices and picked this one and put all their money on it, right? That's like all the smart people, they showed up in America and they picked New York. You know why they picked New York? New York is sitting on 200 million year old granite schist, right? It's indestructible as an island, Manhattan. It's sitting between a bunch of rivers. It's sitting in front of one of the world's great harbors. And it's sitting at the mouth of the Hudson River, which is a mile wide, deep, and it goes straight right into the heart of the country. So if you were picking a port city, it was the most rock solid, geographically sound, logistically sound, well engineered port you could possibly imagine, and so it matters. And Bitcoin represents the same thing. Bitcoin is backed by 400 exahash of digital energy, and 400 exahash of digital energy makes it the most powerful computer network in the world. And so if I'm going to put $1 billion on it, I would want the indestructible, nation-state resistant, fault-tolerant, most powerful computer network in the world. I wouldn't want the second most powerful network. And I wouldn't want a network 100 times less powerful. I want a network where you would need every computer in the world to slow it down 10%, and you would need all the electricity in the world to slow it down 10%. And that's what Bitcoin represents because of the way it's engineered. It represents an indestructible, unstoppable, most powerful computer network. And so anybody is looking to, if you're looking right now, you shouldn't look at it as, well, I wanted to buy something cheap and wait for it to go up 100x, so I better buy something that's a penny stock. Like, there is a meme, we call it penny stocks, right? The whole joke of a penny stock is, if you really wanted a penny stock, we can manufacture thousands of them. That's the theme of the room of the movie Boiler Room. The Wolf of Wall Street did that. It's been going on for hundreds of years. People manufacture a penny stock and they tell you buy it for a penny. It's going to go up to $5. You're going to make 500x your money. That's not what you want. You want a cheap apartment? I'll sell you a $4 million apartment in New York, which looks expensive, or I'll sell you a $42,000 apartment, in some random suburb, in a third world country. But the point really is, which is the better real estate investment? It's not a matter of the cost to buy the thing. It's a question of how secure is the network you're buying into. And everybody will tell you buy the beachfront property in Palm Beach or Miami Beach, you're better off to buy a house on land than to buy the apartment. You're better off to buy the apartment in the good building than the bad building, and you're better off to buy the apartment in the good neighborhood than the bad neighborhood. And you're better off to buy the real estate in the capital city of Rome or London or Paris or New York than to buy the real estate in the 13th biggest city in the country.
Now, thank you so much for watching. Again, hit subscribe, turn that bell notification underneath the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.